Good, rise and shine. Happy hump day. Come on in. Come on in. I'm back. I took a little break. I'm back. We're here with another episode of Car Chronicles. Come on in. We have a lot to get into this morning, this beautiful morning, Wednesday, September 10th, 2025. Come on in, like the video, share the video, subscribe, join the movement. Come on in. Come on in. I got some things to say. It's been a minute since I've been out here in these YouTube streets. It's been a minute, so got a lot of notes, a lot of things I want to talk about. So hopefully YouTube will do me right and let me get through the live in one take. One take. Because y'all know YouTube will mess with Sheik's live. Y'all know when you know, you know. Come on in. Like the video, like, share, and subscribe. We're going to get into some things. And sometimes YouTube be here for what I gotta say, and sometimes they don't, child. I feel like they don't really mess with the live if the content is like more favorable for President Donald J. Trump. So if I'm talking kind of more favorable about what he's doing, then I feel like they don't really mess with the live. But child, if I'm going in, if I'm going hard into pain, then they like, Sheik, you doing too much. So they interrupt the live. So we'll see how it goes today. Uh, got a lot of things I want to talk about. So, but I want to let people come on in here before I really get going. It's taking a minute. So come on in, like the video. Let me know you're here. Good morning. Good morning. Where are you located in this world? Where are you located? Please engage in the chat. Let me know your thoughts on the things that I will be talking about. Today, we're going to talk about the Supreme Court rulings. The Supreme Court being pretty busy. The Supreme Court has been busy. So I want to talk about, what's been keeping them busy, the latest rulings. I want to talk about Chicago and the National Guard and ICE rolling up into Chicago over the weekend, I believe maybe even Sunday. They rolled up in there, but nonetheless, they're there. Arrests are being made, and people are mad. I don't know if anybody expected anything different, but we are going to talk about some things that did have me clutching my invisible pearls. So we're going to talk about that. I want to talk about also Florida and the detention centers. Florida has been having some wins with the detention centers. So I want to talk about, what that's all about. What that's all about, and some cases that or a case that is in the news right now, centered around a young girl's life being taken at the hands of an illegal immigrant. So it's a lot, but I don't know. I'm kind of concerned about this live, and if YouTube is playing with me, because I'm only seeing two people, and anybody who's familiar with my content know that's asinine. We need about 3, 4 more digits on that number for it to be a real number over here. So I'm gonna give it some more time to see, what takes place. If more people start to come in. I did do content I think I did a car chronicle maybe last Wednesday. I think Wednesday was the last one I did. And what did I talk about? I mean, I can't even, I talk about so many things over here pertaining to politics. There's a lot. So if you're not subscribed, definitely subscribe, because my channel is centered around YouTube, political content. So it's kind of like my little job to stay abreast of just things that are going on in these political streets here in the USA, which is where I am located. In specifically Georgia, I am located in Georgia, right outside of Atlanta. So in the suburbs of uh, Georgia. So it's a lot that takes place uh, as far as on the political scene here in the USA, a lot to talk about. So it's never really hard to find something to talk about. It's a matter of, okay, what am I going to kind of prioritize, or how am I going to narrow the topics down, because it's a lot. It's a lot. And so I haven't been out recording, but I have been, as of late, just tapping in, checking out the scene to see what's going on. And I would say, as of late, President Donald J. Trump has been having some wins when it comes to getting what he wants with this political scene, or as I would say, with the immigration. And with immigration, he's been winning lately. He's been winning lately. One area he has not won as of yet is the area of the tariffs. I don't know if you want to consider it. I'm going to say it's not a win yet. I'm going to say it's not a win, just because the lower courts have said, no, you can't move the way you've been moving with these tariffs. But he did, I guess you would say, filing, I don't know if you call it appeal. He raised it up to the higher court, which would be the Supreme Court. And they said, hey, we'll hear you out. So it's pretty much on an emergency hearing type based situation. Normally Supreme Court weigh in on things in like June, but they're like, listen, we gonna be on a soup line. Trump said, listen, we're gonna be on a soup line if we wait until June, because y'all, it's upwards of nearly $1 trillion of money thus far that's been collected from tariffs, like 750 to $1 trillion. So they like, yo, like, we listen, we need for y'all to rule on this like yesterday, because the ruling will determine if whether or not they're going to have to give that money back. It's a lot of money. It's a lot of money. It's a lot of money. But that's pretty much the situation. The ruling will determine if they got to give that money back. And the Trump administration, they not trying to get that money back. Can you blame? I mean, that's a lot of money. And but on the other hand, you have a lot of companies who are like, yo, like, we about to be on the soup line. We about to file for bankruptcy because we cannot afford to operate our business with these tariffs in place. We can't do it. We can't afford it. Um, I learned during my research that right now we're seeing record numbers of people filing bankruptcy. Did y'all know that? Record numbers of businesses and individuals filing bankruptcy. It's up by like 11.5%. And reasoning behind that is like these companies. So let's just talk about with the tariffs. The consumers are absorbing the tariffs, and these companies, these businesses, these American businesses are absorbing the tariffs. So they're like, listen, I don't have the money, the budget to make up for this increase in tariffs. I ain't got it. Listen, it is what it is. I ain't got it. So it's has forced many people, businesses to file bankruptcy. Yes. Other reasons, let me see. There's multiple reasons why people are filing bankruptcies. Individual reasons are high debt and inflation. Also, one point that I was like, yeah, I guess that is some the expiration of pandemic relief. Y'all remember in 2020, underneath the Biden administration, they were doing like a lot with giving money to taxpayers, pandemic relief they were calling it. Uh, What else they had? They had those PPP loans, y'all. People still getting arrested for them. So there was a lot of different things kind of going on that was kind of giving relief to people during the pandemic. So that's gone. uh, hmm, got a new feature up in here. Let me see. Hold on. Let's see. I don't know where we're going. It's like right in my. That's so weird. I don't know. Can y'all see that? It's like it. I don't know what happened. So yes, something popped up. Senator. So I guess one of these new YouTube features. But as I was saying, like a lot of people are filing bankruptcy. Individuals are filing bankruptcy. High debt, inflation, expiration of the pandemic relief funds, medical expenses. How many of you have medical bills? And loss of income. You like, okay, I got these bills, but I don't have the money coming in. Like the math ain't mathing. Like the math isn't mathing for many people in the US, many Americans. It's just not. Folks got both hands. They trying to add. It ain't coming. Listen, it's not coming. It's not coming out the way it's supposed to be coming out. But people still have these responsibilities. Bills. You still got bills to pay. You still got to buy food. You still may have children, family members to support. So as I remember I said a lot of people are filing bankruptcy. Those are reasons why a lot of individuals are filing bankruptcy. Businesses, high interest rates. High interest rates. These businesses cannot keep up with the high interest rates. Inflation pressures. So inflation is real. So when the cost of things, products and things go up, you got less people lining up to purchase whatever it is you're trying to sell. They like, listen, I ain't got it. I can't afford that the extra amount, the increase. I listen. I can. You need to take the prices back down. We need another sale. And these businesses are like, listen, I can't afford to offer, to sell the products at the rates that we once did. We just can't do it. Tightening credit. It's becoming harder and harder for businesses to obtain credit. But remember, the interest rates and things, they're higher. So, that's going to go hand in hand. And strategic missteps. You know how you in advance, you making your plans for your projections for the next year and all of that. How many people, and if any of you are on this live that are business owners in 2024, how many of you factored in inflation, not inflation, I'm sorry, tariffs, increase on tariffs into your planning? Because that's what's got a lot of people messed up, because it's just like, wait a minute, I didn't factor that. I didn't factor tariffs in my planning for my business. I didn't factor in that I would have to change my plug. I would have to find a new source to get the items that I need to operate my business. And that's what's happening, because that's where the tariffs, situation come in, is because President Trump's like, hey, I want to encourage American business owners to do business with fellow American businesses. Like, do business at home. Don't be going up the street. Don't be going outside. Keep it in house. And it sounds good. I like the idea and the concept. But what's happening is that people are like, all right, then I hear what you're saying, but I can't overnight just switch gears and suddenly start getting all my resources that I need to operate my business from American ran businesses, because for one, like, they don't have what I need. They don't. I've heard many business owners talk about, US American business owners talk about, hey, this particular piece that I need to produce my product before it goes out into the market, like, I have to get it from, let's just say, China. Sure, I wouldn't mind getting it from someone here in the US, but there isn't anyone here in the US that offers this piece that I need in order to produce my product. You see what I'm saying? So it's like the concept sounds nice, like I'm with it, with, okay, do things at home. But it's not always feasible to do things at home. And a lot of Americans are like, fine, bet, okay, I would, but how can I do that if if these businesses aren't in existence to provide me what it is that I need to keep my business going? What's up, Rizza? How you doing? Um, Good morning. Not sure. I haven't done content since probably last Wednesday. Not sure if YouTube has my channel shadow banned or not. Not sure because the number is super low. But I also haven't done content since last week. So I don't know if that will play a part. But I don't know. I'm just rocking. We gonna see how I go. So, but good morning. Good morning to all of you who are here. So the idea of doing business at home, it makes sense, but it's not an overnight process. And I talked about earlier on when I first started covering, the politics on this channel earlier this year, when the whole tariff conversation was just heavy. My thoughts then are still the same now. I don't feel like it's realistic to think that businesses literally overnight can switch from getting their resources or the things that they need to operate their business, switching from getting those materials from offshore, in another country, wherever, to just only getting them from here, the United States. I felt like it should have been more of a period or grace period for them to navigate through that as far as these businesses. Say at least a year, 12 months. Say, hey, you got 12 months to find you a new plug, figure it out, but we're going to put this in place at this point. That gives people time to figure out what they're going to do, because I don't feel like a lot of businesses had enough time to prepare for this change. And so, as I say, right now, bankruptcy is up. More businesses are filing bankruptcy because they cannot afford to keep up with the tariffs being one. That's a large reason as to why businesses are filing bankruptcy. They're like, listen, I can't afford the tariffs, that, like, I can't. So two judges on the lower courts ruled in favor of the people, that people who filed suit against him, saying that it was unlawful for him to implement the tariffs. They were like, yo, you're right, you overstepped. That's Congress territory. Bet. Trump, of course, they have the ability to appeal, have it raised up to the higher court to be heard, and that's where we are right now. So the higher courts, the Supreme Courts, will hear the Trump administration out as it pertains to these tariffs and his justification for the tariffs. Right now, the options are to allow the lower court's ruling to stand, which says, hey, you got to stop what you're doing, put everything back and get them folks back their money. Listen, y'all, it's 750 billion to $1 trillion on the line as far as the amount of money that has that United States have made as a result of tariffs. So the Trump administration are like, no, 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 we can't. We don't want to get that money back because doing that is going to it's going to weaken us. It's just not going to be a good look. It's going to weaken us. So we don't want to give back that money. Also, they saying with if we have to give that money back, these countries who we've made deals with to do business with us, they're going to back out. They're going to back out because a lot of these countries who have agreed to do business with us is because of the tariffs being held over their head, the threats. They're like, all right, then they trying to save a coin, like giving them the middle finger, like whatever. But then there are some that are like, all right, then what you talking about? What you talking about, Willis? They're like trying to hear what he's talking about. So they're like, well, if you reverse this, we'll have to give all this money back, and then it'll have us to look weak, and these countries are not going to want to follow through with the plans that they've made with us. Y'all see what I'm saying? Makes sense? So I'm kind of on the fence with this one as far as like how I feel or what way. I am mostly leaning towards wanting to see the tariff situation and how Trump is moving with them to stay. And because I feel like the reversal of it is going to be very detrimental. And even though, you got businesses who are like, listen, I can't afford to operate because of the tariffs, I still feel like it would be more detrimental to us as a country if Trump were to have to reverse all of that. I also was reading that if he loses and he has to get that money back, it's going to cause an issue. Like, so you know how you got to file claims. So these people, I guess these people who are in the import, the people who are receiving these products, they're the ones who are like kind of, getting impacted with the tariffs or whatever. They'll have the ability, if the Supreme Court rules in favor of those who are against the tariffs, these these businesses, the people who receive the imports, they'll have the ability to file claims. They'll be able to file claims to get their money back for monies that they've paid for tariffs, you see? And that's a lot of money. So the interesting thing that I learned, and I'm like, wow, this is new. You have these third party companies who are approaching these these people who are receiving these imports. They're like, yo, listen, hear me out, hear me out. All right, they're like, yo, hear me out. Let me purchase your rights. I don't know, y'all, yet. Haven't figured this out, how this works. But they're approaching, these third party companies are approaching these businesses and like, yo, let me just transfer your rights to whatever dealing with, getting your money back. Just transfer all that to me. So I'm assuming it's coming with them cutting them a check. The third party person saying, yo, David, listen, I know you waiting in line to try to see if you can get some money back for these tariffs, but at the same time, your business is struggling and you don't even know if you can stay open for another 30 days and we still got to wait for a ruling. So this is what I got for you. I'll pay you, let's just throw out a number, 250,000. I'll just pay you 250,000. Therefore, you can kind of hopefully, get your business, together, get in a good place, make payroll. But a part of that, by me giving you 250,000, you transfer your rights over to me so therefore after the ruling, because we're confident, because these people are like confident that it's going to rule against Trump. So they're like, okay, so therefore after the ruling, then we'll basically file claims and get money, get the money back or whatever, and it'll just be our money because we've already kind of paid you. You see what I'm saying? So these some people are banking on Trump losing and then making a lot of money from like the claims and things like that, because remember I said it's upwards to $1 trillion that's been made and or projected to even be made between now and next June. Interesting, right? So I'm like, well, what business is this? Because I just found that to be interesting. I don't know really how that works with the whole transferring of your rights. But listen, that's what's out there. It's a lot going on. It's a lot going on. Trump has a pretty good record for winning when his cases go up to the Supreme Court. I would say he's won more than lost. There's a couple that, he didn't win. But most of the time, from what I've seen since I've been reporting politics on this channel, the Trump administration does win. When it comes to these tariffs, will he win? I don't know, but I don't ever count Trump out because, like I said, most of the time he does win. Um, Now, let me talk about as far as with the tariff situation. Congress normally is the one that has the control to make decisions on the tariffs. But a president can also make the decision as well with the approval of Congress. So Congress can step in and be like, all right, then, President, you can make the decision as long as it's something that pertains to like the national security and trade emergencies. So the argument is that, well, what Trump is doing, it doesn't have anything to do with like, that's not the situation. Tariffs isn't part of the reasoning behind like, just because, see, Trump has been using tariffs as a means of leverage. So they're like, okay, this isn't falling in the category of reasons that support you being able to do what you do. So that right there just says no, you can't be doing this. Um, so Trump, I don't know. They start, I think next week, or let's see, next week the 19th. I think that might be next Friday. They'll start presenting, I guess, their argument and things like that to the Supreme Court, and then the first week of November they will start kind of both sides, I guess, will start doing, you know, doing their argument, doing their thing. Y'all know how they go back and forth in the courts. That part will start up in like first week of November. So I'm looking, I guess, for a decision to be made, of course, before the end of the year out, but I don't know if it would still be in the month of November, how long it'll take for that process, for the two sides to, argue why they feel like they're in the right. I did see a clip yesterday where what's her name? Sonia Sotomayor. She's one of the justices on the Supreme Court. She was elected by President Obama, I think in 2009. I saw her on The View. So I normally don't watch The View. I don't like that platform. Y'all know, yeah. When you know, you know. So when I saw her on there, I was like, oh, I'd never seen any of the justices be like interviewed like on like a daytime television type. I'd never seen that. So I was curious to know what she had to say. So she has a children's book that's out. I think it's about immigration or something like that. But she talked about just the difficult job it is to make decisions at the Supreme Court level. And she said that when she was at the lower level, she, as far as before she became one of the justices and just was, I guess, a judge on the lower level, probably maybe federal level, whatever level she was on, she said she found the job to actually be easy because in her mind, it's just like, well, if I don't get it right, or, there's always another level that can weigh in on it and, make the final decision. So that kind of gave her some type of solace to where she knew that, okay, the weight wasn't all on her. There is somebody else that could take a look at the situation. Whereas now, being a part of the Supreme Court, the highest court, there's no other court above theirs. So the buck stops with them. So she's like, it's a lot of pressure. And people think that it's easy to make a decision, and it's not, because she was like, a lot of times when you have your argument, you kind of just focusing on your side, like what your argument is. Like the Trump, let's just say them wanting to, um, keep these tariffs in place because they say Trump feels like, oh, it's been unfair, unbalanced. These countries been getting over for many years. So they have their argument. The Trump administration isn't thinking heavy about the impact of like the American people or like the finances, the business, the other side. They're not thinking about that. Everybody's thinking about their side, just like the side that's against tariffs. They're not thinking about the money that can be made, for the country, as far as with bringing down the debt from what 36 trillion down to whatever it can possibly be brought down to. They're not thinking like that. They're thinking about how it impacts them, their bottom line. So everybody's just thinking about themselves when you're in an argument. That's pretty much most of the time the norm. So when you have the Supreme Court, their job is to think about both sides, all the sides. So they got to hear Trump's side, his administration side, their reasoning, their argument as to why the tariffs need to stay in place. But then they also have to hear the opposing side as to, well, why the tariffs should not stay in place and how it's harming the American people, businesses, all of that. So they have to hear all of that and make a decision. And then she's like, this is Sonia Sotomayor. She was on The View, and she's talking through the process with them, um, making decisions when it comes to, when issues are raised to the Supreme Court. She was like, they got to hear everybody's side. And there's always going to be a winner and a loser. And the loser's going to be in their feelings and feel a certain type of way because they have a strong feeling about their cause, right? Everybody, when you have an argument, you strongly feel a certain way. So when someone doesn't rule in your favor, that does something to you. It has you feeling a way. So she said that's what makes the job so difficult. So I was just like, baby, ain't no way, that's not a job I'd want. I wouldn't want to be the president. I wouldn't want to be on the Supreme Court. None of that. Because that's a lot of weight put on one person's shoulder to have to be. It's almost like, only the best I can use it is like an analogy of like God. They're not God, but in physical form, when it comes to the law, they are the final say. But if you are a believer in a higher power, you don't just, even though there may be a final say when it comes to that level, there is something else, another entity higher than them that you believe in that will still have all to work out for you. You see what I'm saying? So it's a lot of pressure, but that's what she says that makes the job, so hard. And she's been in her position for 17 years. She said that she knew since she was 10 years old she wanted to be an attorney, from watching Perry Mason, and I think was it Nancy Drew. I remember Perry Mason as a kid, but the Nancy Drew, I think that one was probably before my time. I think she was like want to be like a detective. I think it was like a series of books or something like that, and she would try to solve things with the help of like family and stuff like that. So Nancy Drew, she said Nancy Drew kind of piqued her interest with wanting to go into law. And then Perry Mason, yeah, if y'all remember the Perry Mason shows, and he'll basically he worked for the defense with trying to prove Rizzy say drinking. Okay, sir. Perry Mason basically worked for the defense with trying to prove they're innocent. And so she was like, that's what sealed the deal for her. So she was just a really good student, valedictorian for her high school. I think she's first generation of American citizen. Her parents were Puerto Rican. So she seemed like a nice lady, just listening to her. I'd always seen her, and I remember when Obama had, put her in that position, but I never kind of heard her speak. So that's why I was kind of intrigued. And I listened to that little 6 minute clip on The View. I don't know when the next time they're going to get a click from me over there, but I wanted to hear what she had to say. So if you are interested what Sonia Sotomayor had to say, again, she was on The View, the talk show The View. That's that show with Whoopi Goldberg, that daytime television show. She was on there, and it was just a short clip, but she sounded like a very smart lady. They asked her about Trump going up for a third time because she couldn't get into, of course, any specifics centered around anything raised to them. But she did say to date, including with Trump, no one has shown interest with wanting to be a president for a third term. Now, she said, according to the Constitution, you can't. But no one has raised the issue up to the Supreme Court to go against that. You see what I'm saying? So right now, people are thinking that Trump may be that first person to bring it up to the Supreme Court to be able to be to go again for a third term as the president of the United States. Also, since they've never seen a case where one wanted a third term, she also couldn't speak on it in a way because there's no history of them ever ruling or making a decision on it. A lot of times they may have seen similar cases and they may kind of weigh in on those, but she said we've never had anyone bring it up to the court, to the Supreme Court, on wanting to be the president for a third time. But like I said, in all, it was a really good little 6 minute interview. If you want to hear what Justice Sotomayor had to say, again, she has a children's book out right now that I guess it just got released. Can't remember the name of it, but I know it's a children's book. So if you want to look into that. So right now, so the lower courts that ruled against Trump when it came to the tariffs, the part of the ruling was you have until, I believe it was October 14th, to do whatever you're doing centered around these tariffs, and then you have to stop. And they gave him to that date to give him time to be able to file his appeal, raise it to the higher courts and all of that, which they did. They did that, I think, like last week. They did that. So that's that. So right now, Trump is still business as usual. He can still do what he's been doing when it comes to these tariffs. It's just a matter of if the Supreme Court comes back and rules and judges who said no, because there were some businesses and things that came together that filed lawsuits also against Trump because of the loss of, I've covered this 2 months back, because of the loss of revenue and things um, as a result of the tariffs. So right now, Trump can still, move around with these tariffs, do however he's been doing. He can do that. But once the ruling comes back, and if they rule against him and say you can't do that, then Trump will then have the challenge of returning those funds to whoever he collected them from. So whoever he collected them extra tariffs from. So when I think about that, I'm thinking about, the businesses, like whoever the businesses. I don't know, like if with the countries, I guess that I don't know, some of these countries, if they paid on some of these tariffs, but whoever he took money from, y'all, it got to go back. So they'll look and see, like, okay, who did you take money from? Because whoever you took money from, it has to go back. So that's what it would look like if the ruling is not favorable for him. That's what it's going to look like. And the Trump administration, they're like, that cannot happen. That is just going to be detrimental to the U.S. I believe it'll be detrimental. So I'm more so leaning towards keeping the tariff situation the way it is right now versus trying to returning that money. But at the same time, like there's a lot of people out here, a lot of businesses out here hurting because of the tariffs. That's why I'm like, this one kind of got me stumped. But I do feel like it's just not, it's going to be a big hit for our country if they have to reverse all of that. I just and then they said, I think based off of with the way we're collecting tariffs, if we continue to collect tariffs the way we are over the next 10 years, our debt will be down about $4 trillion. So I'm like, okay, it's a lot of money, but remember, I think our debt is at 36 point something trillion. So that's gonna bring us down to what, 32 trillion. Like it's still I don't think, we gonna feel it as an economy if we down $4 trillion more on our debt because it's so high. It's so high. But listen, this is what they saying. This is what the numbers, when they do the numbers, they said, listen, with Trump's plan, it'll have us down about 4 trillion. I don't know. This is what they said. This is what they said. So we'll see about that. But I would say, yeah, before the end of the year out, we'll have a ruling. Maybe before the month of November out. No, or October. Let me see. When did I say? It's the first week I think it's first week in November when they start kind of going, when really everything starts going in the courts, centered around the arguments of the tariffs. I think it's the first week in November they said it's going to start. So you can look that up. So I'm guessing definitely by the end of the year we should have a decision made. We should have a decision made because they're expediting this decision, because normally these type of things, decisions and all that, doesn't take place until June. And Trump administration was like, we can't wait until June of 2026 for a ruling on this. It's too much. It's a lot of money on the line. We can't do this. We can't do this. So it would be interesting to see how this turns out. But I'm sure you got a lot of American people, business owners, just individuals who are just really hoping that the whole situation with the tariffs is reversed and things kind of go back to the way they were when he came into office. And I have just a question of like, just with this Trump administration, as it's been, let's just compare July of 2024 to July of 2025. Overall, are we as a nation, as a country, in a better place? Because we got all these like different categories. We got the inflation, the cost of food. We got jobs. What else? We got the situation with tariffs, housing. We got all these different categories. So the question is, are we up, in comparison to last year? Like, are we winning? Because for the most part, as I hear people discuss these different points that I'm talking about, it doesn't sound like we're in a better place with really any of them other than the immigration situation with rounding up illegal immigrants. Everything else, to me, from the research that I've done, it's not it things the numbers were more favorable a year ago with the jobs, the cost of things. Like, things was just, people just overall were doing better economically a year ago than they are today. And the Trump administration, when Trump ran, he ran on basically things being better underneath his watch. And it hasn't been a full year yet. But do you feel like with what he's doing, we're working towards things being better? We're getting there. Because a lot of people argue, oh, it's still early. He just got in there. It's like, okay, I hear you. But the efforts that he's making, the things that he's doing, do you feel like it's getting us that much closer to things being better, to food being more affordable, housing being more affordable, uh, people having jobs? Do you feel like we're like inching closer to that, or do you feel like we're moving further and further away from that? So that's the question that I kind of that popped in my head last night as I was preparing for this live today. Because Trump is someone, I did vote for him the last two terms, and I voted for him because I wanted things in all these areas to be better, including like immigration. That was like probably my number one reason for why I voted for him, because I feel like immigration is out of control. Our country, we can no longer afford, like we haven't ever been able to afford to absorb the costs to support illegal immigrants in the manner in which we have. But we've been doing it, and I told you the debt is like 36 trillion, and a lot of that is due to us paying out billions of dollars with supporting illegal immigrants in various ways: healthcare, housing, food, just resources, just to live. As I've said before on this channel, like it's not free to live in the USA. It's not. It costs it costs. It's a hefty cost. So I wanted to see, him get that under control, which he's been working very hard to do so. So I don't have any issues with that. But literally daily, I'm learning about companies who are letting go workers by the hundreds, thousands. And it's just like, okay, so we went in, to me, and many people in the area of immigration. But what about these other areas centered around the everyday working person's livelihood? Are we winning in that area? Do we have more pros than cons underneath the current administration? Like, these are things that I think about. Um, because right now it's just like I don't feel like we have more pros. I'm happy to see that, what they say. This is what you voted for as far as with the illegal immigration, really with anything that we're seeing take place. People are saying this, that's what you voted for, that's what you voted for. My vote was rooted in change and wanting more, something better, something different than what we were experiencing before underneath the Biden administration. That was what my vote was rooted in. Immigration is one of the talking points of that. So high level, it was about change. I wanted to see change for the better. So on the low level, okay, one of the points being immigration. I am seeing the changes centered around immigration. But as of yet, right now, but it is early, the change centered around immigration, though, is not or hasn't really had an impact on these other areas that we're taking an L in, like when I say jobs and things. Because a lot of these jobs and people that are getting laid, these fields that people are getting laid off in, they're not jobs that's heavily held by an illegal immigrant. You see what I'm saying? So they're different points. They're different. They're not overlapping. Some do, but the vast majority don't. Most of these people who are losing their jobs, they're like like upwards of six-figure earners, white collar jobs. You have some factory jobs, but these are jobs that's not heavily held with illegal immigrants. So as we're hearing about the layoffs, it's not it doesn't encompass because of, ICE raid. You hear those stories in the media, but most of these companies that are doing the layoffs, Amazon, with Chevron, UPS, it's not a story attached to immigration. It's something separate. So these are just American citizens who are losing their jobs. It has nothing to do with immigration. So I'm like, okay, we're not winning in that area. We're not winning in that area. So what happens with these thousands of people who have lost their job? Because as of July of 2025, let me see, what's that number? It's a large, it's a lot of people. I think it's near about seven. Let me see, what's my numbers? As of July, there's been about 62,000 job cuts. as of July 2025. A year prior to that, July 2024, there were about 26,000 job cuts, 25,885 to be exact. So year over year, it's the job cuts are 140% higher than what they were. So that's why I ask these questions, as I want you to think about, are we better today than what we were yesterday as a whole? Just as a whole, when we think about all the different points: housing, food, tariffs, jobs, healthcare, immigration. Those are like the 5 points. In all, are we winning as a collective or are we losing? Because when I hear about these job losses, I can't help but to wonder what's going to happen with these people as far as with them supporting themselves and continue to keep a roof over their head, food on the table. I've talked about on this channel universal UBI, universal basic income. Will that kick in? Will that expedite? If you're not familiar with that, UBI is universal basic income. So that's the idea of basically the government basically giving you money every month to handle your just basic needs. Child, ain't nothing, no extras. It's just your basic needs, like, your housing, food, just real basic, real basic. And it's been talked about that taking place because a lot of people are projected to be without jobs within the next 5 years, at most 10 years, but really within the next 5 years by 2030. 2030 seems to be like that number where they're like, yo, by 2030, it's going to be very apparent that people are down bad. It's going to be the vast majority, or at least 1/3. Like, people are going to be down bad. And a lot of it is going to be contributed to the incorporation of AI, artificial intelligence, AI coming in and replacing humans in the workplace. We're already seeing that more and more. So a lot of these jobs the losses are as a result of AI as well as tariffs. So there's multiple reasons. But AI, when it comes to like the white collar jobs, those, office jobs, much of those 6-figure jobs, AI is the reason behind why there are a lot of job loss in that industry, in that sector. And that number is going to continue to grow. Companies always want to do more with less. So if you can use AI in place of a human and get more production, get more productivity, then that's what they're going to do. And even when it comes to just the blue collar jobs, because eventually it's, AI is going to take over that too. But as of right now, it looks as though AI is going to take over the white collar jobs just first, the technical jobs first. The blue collar jobs is going to be more, it's more that's going to have to go into that because they're going to have to do more building with like the robots and things like that that can lift things. So that's coming, but it's going to be secondary. So I hear people talk about, oh, plumbing, plumbers, things like that being a safe field for vocation. But then I also hear experts say, for a short minute, but that's going to get taken over too. That's just the next wave. Like the first wave is the white collar jobs. The second wave is the blue collar jobs. Y'all see? So it's going to be in waves. But nonetheless, by 2030, they're saying we will see a major impact with both, but definitely by in 10 years from now. So I guess that will put us in 2035. The world as we see it and know it today is just going to be very, very different. Very, very different. And it's going to be primarily due to just AI, artificial intelligence, robots, things like that. Non-humans being in control of the things that takes place in this world. That's kind of the vision of what's supposed to take place. So back to UBI, universal income. If you do not have these jobs to work because some robot is doing it for you or AI is doing it for you, how are you going to make a living? So UBI will come into place, and that'll be the government giving you some type of payment, stipend, whatever you want to call it. You'll get that every month, and you will just live off of that. This has been tested out before the pandemic. They did test out UBI in California. I believe it was in Stockton, California. They tested it out with a group of people, with giving them a monthly, payout to see how that worked. Um, so you can research that, because I actually just learned about that earlier this year when I first started covering, politics on this channel. I learned about the UBI, and how California had already kind of tested it out and things like that. So it is something that is real. When it would be put into effect, I don't know. But given with all the people who are losing their jobs, to me, it seems like it's something that will be needed very, very, very soon. In my community, as I'm seeing them put up these houses and I'm seeing these price tags of 500, 600,000, my question is, who can afford to buy these houses today? So if I see a neighborhood and it's going to be a whole subdivision and the price tag says 600,000, just know when you see that price tag, that's the cheapest house is still going to cost more than that. That's just to get you on the property, in the trailer, in the model home, to start having conversations. The 600 number. So that means the base price is going to be six something and upwards of 700. You see, I'm very familiar with how the real estate game works. So my thought is, who has the money today to purchase these $500,000 homes anywhere in the United States? Interest rates are up. So again, back to universal income. To me, as I'm seeing these type of things take place, job losses, houses going up, getting literally thrown up, the price tags going up, people aren't making the money on their jobs anymore like that to sustain their lifestyle. It's been in the news reports that many homeowners in the state of Florida are struggling to sell their homes. They're trying to move away or get out of their homes because they can't afford to keep them anymore. Property taxes crazy high. Many people are losing their jobs. They're trying to sell these homes. Who wants to have their home foreclosed? It makes sense to sell it, right? But people are struggling to find buyers because now the gig is up. People know that these homes in many places are overpriced. So no one wants to replace Susan in her situation with being in a home that's overpriced to get into that same situation. Like, who's signing up for that? It defines common sense and logic. Like, if you got an influx of people trying to sell, it should have you to think or question why, and of whether or not you should replace them and jump into that situation and purchase that home. Because these people can't afford to sell the house and give you this crazy deal because they got a mortgage on it, right? They got to sell the house at least for the amount that they still owe on the home. And it is very likely with what I'm seeing that the amount that they still owe on the home is still more than really truly what the house is valued. The struggle is real out here, y'all. I'm telling y'all, the struggle is real on so many levels. So many levels. It's very real on so many levels. A lot going on in Florida with the housing market, towards the immigration detention centers. There's 2 now. Florida has 2. Deportation Depot at Alligator Alcatraz. Deportation Depot had its grand opening on Friday. They started taking in detainees on Tuesday. About 117 came in. They can hold up to how many beds they got? I think they got about 1,600 beds. So between Alcatraz, and Deportation Depot, I think they can hold upwards of about 5,000 immigrants. So they got the space. Trump won once again with the ruling for keeping Alligator Alcatraz open, keeping the doors open, because there were, some suits filed with, and the lower courts said that they had to stop allowing for um, people, detainees, to be sent to Alligator Alcatraz. Well, the court ruled last week that no, the doors can stay open for Alligator Alcatraz, and then the next day, Deportation Depot opened. So now there are two places, fairly new places in Florida where detainees are kept. And local politicians have an issue with that because they're like, listen, that's too much money that our taxpayers are having to spend to support these two projects. We'll call them projects. They said that to get Deportation Depot off the ground, that was $4 million. No, sorry, backtrack. That was $6 million. It cost $6 million to get Deportation Depot off the ground. It costs $4 million. Is estimated that it'll be a $4 million to keep Alligator Alcatraz going. So that's $10 million right there. They're like, we can't afford that. We can't afford that. So that is money that the people of in Florida are having to come up with. They have to pay for that. So the politicians aren't happy in Florida, state representatives. But on the Trump side, they're like, well, listen, would you rather have that, or would you rather have us continue to pay out billions of dollars for things like healthcare, crime, and all that it takes for us to have illegal immigrants here in the United States? Like, which way you want it? I saw that Florida has the most arrests for, I think they said they arrest 3 times more illegal immigrants in their state than any other state in the U.S. So that's why, with them opening up these facilities and things like that, it's important to them because it's like we got more popping off here. I learned a while ago that most of the illegal immigrants that come into the U.S., their final destination is Florida. That's where they want to go. They want to go to Miami. Welcome to Miami. I don't know if it's because of Hollywood, Bad Boys, the movie. I don't know, but they're like, listen, we want to go to Florida. So their number of detainees are 3 times that of any other state in the U.S. So they're like, um, we have to open up these facilities because we need somewhere to detain these people. The new deportation depot is located in Baker County in Florida, and they have up to 5,000 beds. I know. I think earlier I said about 1,600, but looking at my notes, they have up to 5,000 beds at Deportation Depot. And I believe at Alligator Alcatraz, there may be around 3,000. If I've reported on Alligator Alcatraz several times, so I have to reflect back on that information. But I think Alligator Alcatraz has about 3,000 beds. So between the two, we're at about 8,000 beds. But they say, hey, we need it because it just be on and popping here in Florida. So we got to have some place to put them. So again, a lot's been going on. Chicago, boots on ground, ICE, National Guards are there. They're doing arrests. Um, I'm going to come back and cover in more detail on that. Stay tuned. Uh, the politicians there aren't happy, but that's okay because the crime is out of control. What's up, Purple? Good morning. The crime is out of control in Chicago. Did y'all see that in broad? I think it was in broad daylight. Like these six guys broke into a jewelry store, stole like five watches, expensive watches that valued at over like $170,000. It said it's estimated between 170 $261,000. The six guys were apprehended. They found, so they were on a high speed chase. So after they did the smash and grab, there was they eventually caught the perpetrators, the criminals, after a high speed chase. The guys, they crashed or whatever. So it's six guys who are in jail on felony charges for robbery. Yes. I think all this took place on Friday. But again, Chicago, like, listen, we got this. We don't need y'all. We got this. Do you really? Do you really? Do you really? Also, what they said, they also found what 91 vehicles at the bottom of the Chicago River. Y'all seen that? Crazy, yo. Like, so some people who have been, investigating cold cases decided, oh, let's look in the river and see if we can find something. Child, they found way more than what they thought they was gonna find. They found over 90 vehicles in the Chicago River. So I'm like, well, did the police ever look in the river for anything? Like, yes, I'm wondering, like, how many bodies down there? How many people were in these cars? Like, how many bodies are down there? If you got 90 plus vehicles down there, y'all think it's not bodies down there? I'm just saying, y'all. I'm just saying, it's a lot. It is a lot. Stay tuned. Make sure you got your notifications on so you know when I go live, because I will be coming back to you all. Coming back to give more on these topics because there's a lot, a lot. Hopefully, when I do come back, YouTube won't have my channel shadow banned and the people can see me live and get this information because I bring the information to you. I bring it to you. So I got to pretty much work through that, but I'm just going to have to continue to go live and, you know, uh, so therefore I can get back circulating in the algorithm so you can get this information because it's a lot of information. Those of you who were able to catch this live today, it's the reason you're able to catch a lot of information. A lot of this information I share, other outlets are not going into detail about these things. That's why YouTube plays with my numbers and views like that, because the way I present the information, I share the information that's not really being shared. Um, so stay tuned because I want to also talk about the young girl who was found murdered at the hands of an illegal immigrant in Maryland, another state who's opposed to National Guard, ICE, being up in their state. Young girl, 19-year-old girl, body found over the weekend, not far from, I think, where her vehicle was found. 35-year-old illegal immigrant who had been arrested and released just this past April on DUI charge. He was let out as he await trial. I don't think the trial date had been set, but he was released in April 2025 and he murdered the young lady, the 19-year-old young girl, Dakara Thompson. He murdered her in August. So last month he murdered her. Um, so right now it's a blame game going on. ICE is saying, hey, if Maryland worked with us and not just allow these illegal immigrants to just be released on the streets after they're caught, then we wouldn't have had this issue. But the Maryland police are like, no, no, no. The the feds had him in custody back when they caught him. Like, remember, he had an arrest and released back in April. He was caught at a federal state park. So they said the feds had actually arrested him. They said they didn't have him in their system for any arrests. But the one arrest they found was a federal arrest. So that was out of their jurisdiction. So they was like, don't blame us for that. Y'all the one caught him and released him. And if that is the case, that makes sense to me for the feds to have to speak to why they let this man out. He was illegal. It was known he was illegal. He was charged with DUI, and then you let him out, you let him go. And then 4 months later, he murdered someone. And they say, here's the thing, he just got arrested like earlier this week, at the top of this week. But last Thursday is when the ICE had put out something to kind of go pick him up, but it was too late. Hell, he had already committed a crime. By the time ICE was like, all right, then, yeah, we about to go pick him up, he had already killed the young girl. He had already murdered the young girl. It wasn't determined yet at that time that he was the one, but he hadn't been picked up or charged with that. But um, when we now look at the trail, ICE was they were late. There's no reason why this man should have been released in April. This was under Trump administration when they were doing the ICE, and ICE was, picking up, rounding people up. So it doesn't make sense to me that if he was in federal custody, for them to have released him, given that they've been on this whole campaign of rounding up illegal immigrants since Trump been in office. So the county executive, Aisha, her name is Aisha Brave, let me see, what's her name? Brave Boy. She's like, no, that's not on us. The federal government should have to answer to why they released this guy to the streets, because we didn't have him in our system. We had never picked him up. So we can't speak to that because we didn't know who this man was until all this happened. But the federal government knew who he was because they are the ones who arrested him at the state park on a DUI charge back in April. And then they allowed him to go and be out of jail until his court date, which, from what they said at the time they were doing a press conference a couple of days ago, top earlier this week, they were like, there was no court date yet set for him pertaining to that DUI charge. So they were able to capture him because when they're doing, the local Maryland police, when they were doing their job and investigating, they did a great job with, you know, looking into the young girl case. They saw a camera, surveillance camera, where the young girl was getting into his vehicle, willingly got into his vehicle. So from what I've heard about the story is that the young girl had left her father's house late at night, maybe after 10, saying she was going to get gas, and she didn't come back home. And the next day she was announced, she was reported missing the next day. But looking at the surveillance cameras, when the police, Maryland did their this is Prince George County in Maryland, when they did their investigation, they saw on a surveillance camera her getting into this man's vehicle. His name was Hugo Hernandez Mendez. They saw her willingly getting into his vehicle. Then they were able, from their investigation, to learn that he had taken her to his home and to his bedroom, because for what I've heard from other outlets is that he was renting a room at someone's place. So he took her to his home and the room that he was renting, and that's where the murder is alleged to have taken place. And then he took her body and dumped it um, someplace. I think it was. I'm not quite sure exactly where the body was found, but I know it wasn't that far from where her vehicle was found. Um, but she was 19, 5'2", like a little thing, 105 pounds. Basically, her measurement, she was like as small as I was when I graduated high school, and just a tiny little thing. Did community work. Now the police are now trying to investigate to learn the connection between the young girl and this man, because looking at the surveillance camera, and like she willingly got into the vehicle with this man. So there's questions as to why. Late at night, why would a young girl get into a vehicle with what appeared to have been a stranger to anyone else, but she got into the vehicle with him. And they are saying right now the guy Hugo, he's not being cooperative like when they've questioned him. So he ain't really forthcoming with the answers. So I don't know how much they gonna get out of him pertaining to the why. But if they can prove that he's the one did it, the why is not going to be necessary. People like to know the why, but a lot of times we don't get the why. We just learn, who, the how, the when, but the why, sometimes that remains a mystery if the person's not willing to talk, especially if they're still claiming that they're innocent. Very sad story. Of course, the family is distraught. Recent graduate from high school. Just bad. Just a bad, all around bad, sad situation. Just again, another reason why ICE need to continue to do what they do. Because my thing is, if ICE had gone into the city of Maryland at any point prior to this young lady's death, would this guy have been Hugo been one of the people rounded up? Because ICE, they did their thing. I think it was over 500 arrests in DC when they were there for 30 days. Now they're in Chicago. I left off at there being about 4 arrests already in Chicago. Uh, Rizza said, I didn't realize I was put drinking, but I meant driving. I was like, Rizza, you getting on and popping early. But yes, y'all. So my thing is like, if ICE had been in Maryland with the young lady, would this young lady still be alive? Dakara Thompson is her name. You can look her up on the internet. 19-year-old found murdered at the hands of an illegal immigrant, Hugo Hernandez Mendez. Risa says super early. So yeah, like yeah, it's time. Yeah, the illegal immigrants have to go, especially the ones who are doing the absolute most. And according to Border Czar Tom Homan, I think he said 70% of the detainees are they have committed crimes. They've committed crimes, egregious crimes such as murder, rape, trafficking, drugs, like the worst of the worst, burglary. So these are the type of people they're trying to get up off the street. So I am here for it. I'm not mad at it, especially after hearing this story. This young lady could still be here had this man, this monster, not been released to the streets in April following his arrest for DUI, and knowingly, the authorities knowing that he was an illegal immigrant. But again, he was in Maryland, Democratic ran state, anti-ICE state, all of that. All of that. We got to take all that into an account. So make sure you have your bell on, your notification bell on, subscribe to this channel so you know when I come back, because I will be back. I will be back because it's so much more I want to say. I'm just hoping that when I do come back, YouTube won't play with me and they'll allow for my notifications to get out so people can get this message, because there's so much information. But some of you were able to get a lot of this information, but I have plenty more. So stay tuned, stay tuned. Go out into this world, show up in a way in which you want others to show up for you. Like attracts like. Happy Wednesday. Love on yourselves and one another. Thank you so much for being here. Like, share, and subscribe. Thank you to my new subscribers. Thank you to my returning subscribers. Have a wonderful day, and I will catch you on the next broadcast. And thank you so much, awesome moderators, Rizza, and Just Say When. Peace.